My name is Ruth Taylor. I'm currently based in a little town called Halpo, which is between Hamilton and a place called Te Awamutu in New Zealand. Not originally from there. Anyone who's from New Zealand will be able to tell. I'm 47 and I am a mother of two daughters. Came to New Zealand with toddlers and they're now both teenagers. So that's kind of part of my story, I have to be said. My journey with my children has been quite interesting. I class myself now as a bit of a parenting coach. And one of the reasons for that is because of all the learning I've had from my children. And one of the pivotal kind of learnings for me was when my daughter was about 4 years old and she didn't want to go to bed, which, is something which is fairly common for kids. And we had to kind of chase her around the house. We'd try to get hold of her, try to get her into a bedclothes, she'd take them off. Classic kind of nighttime battle. And I remember my husband kind of going, if you don't get yourself dressed, you're not having a book tonight. And it was one of those things where you kind of want to support your husband or your partner, you've got a co-parent, as it were. And so we managed to pin her down. We got her dressed again, into bed and all this sort of stuff. Gave her a milk, settled right down. And of course, then she wanted to read a book to be read to her. And my husband went, no, darling, you don't get your book because of your behavior earlier. And she just lost it. I think we had probably a good 30, 40 minutes of tears, all this sort of stuff. And we made the decision not to read the book because we always wanted to be someone who followed through, we were consistent, all that kind of stuff. But it made me really look hard at how we were sanctioning or, trying to control their behavior, because taking away that fun thing just seems so easy, but really wasn't the right way of going. So that's kind of part of my story of where I've kind of gone with parenting, because I think there's things like that which just make you stop and reevaluate what you're doing and why you're doing it.
I love that. You're one of those people who is absolutely needed right now. With COVID-19, people are stuck at home, where they're having to homeschool their children. And you've been working with parents who want to be intentional in creating fun in their families. Am I correct?
Oh, look, absolutely, because we can so easily fall into that trap of taking away the fun stuff.
Yes.
Because we think that will motivate them. But we're talking children here. It's not the same as how we work as an adult.
Yeah.
And we're just making, I've come up with something I call selfish sanctioning, because basically I want to encourage people to put in punishments, if that's what you want to call it, which are good for them. So good for me. And that basically means don't take away the fun, because it stops the fun for me, it stops the fun for them, stops the fun for everybody. But you have to be quite intentional to do that, and actually have to think ahead and plan, because it doesn't necessarily come naturally. It's much more natural to say, you're not getting that book tonight. It really is.
And at the end of the day, you punish both you and the child. It's not just about the child, it's you as well, because you're going to have to live through the consequences of that.
Yes, the consequences are the hardest thing. I mean, my children got a bit savvy, down the line, and they'd say, I'm still going to get my book tonight, though, aren't I, Mom? And I go, yes, you are, darling, but I get to choose it, and it'll be a short one. So you still got flexibility there,
Yes, yes. So give us some tips, some ideas. Look, everybody is struggling. Everybody's trying to find ways to ride this period that we're in. It's a challenging time, Ruth. I can't begin to imagine, my kids are all grown up, 32, 30, 24. I don't even think about it. Okay, I've got a grandson now. He's just 4 weeks old. But how are people with little children coping?
Well, I think, to be honest, a lot of them aren't. They are just going to be overwhelmed. And I think that whole scenario about open communication, you don't actually have to have a front in front of your children. At home is where you get to be who you are, which is also where the children get to be who they are, which is why you often get a child who's very well behaved at school and then let's rip at home. Because home should be that safe place where you are able to show and share those emotions that you've got. But obviously, as adults, we want to provide a good kind of image. We want to show them how to do it, role model what it is that we want them to be able to do in the future. So, explain, obviously relevant to the age and the stage that your child is at, but let them know that maybe, you're not feeling quite up for it right now. Ask them for some ideas of how you can spend your day. If the children are older, you can negotiate with them. Look to give them some time. People talk about ROI, return on investment. If you're going to give your child time, give them the time when they need it, not when you've scheduled it. So when you're working from home and you think, oh, I'm going to, I'll give my children some time between 8 and 9, and then I'll go and work between 10 and 11. And maybe your kid doesn't want your time between 8 and 9. Maybe they're engaged. You've got to try and go with the flow, allow your day to be sort of flexible. But if your child is starting to bug you and it's starting to bother you and they're knocking on the door, you're probably best off going, okay, let's put my tools down. Let's give my child some real kind of proper attention,
time,
and value time, and get that return on your time so that they're engaged. Make sure you have lunch times together. I mean, that's a perfect opportunity. Lunch times, break times. Go and find them, give them that time so they don't feel left out. As far as they're concerned, you're at home. This is a holiday. This is a weekend. They don't have the concept of what's going on here. This is a new concept for all of us. They don't understand that how we live at home has suddenly changed. So there's a whole load of rules and regulations that we assume they're going to understand. I'm on the computer, darling. No, I'm working. Yeah, but you're on the computer at the weekends, mum and dad. You're watching YouTube, or you're doing something else. So we do need to be, I think, a little bit more conscious about the difference that they're seeing. They don't have that kind of holistic understanding about why this is actually different.
Yeah, it's interesting that, sometimes just taking that 5 minutes out to be fully present to them could give you an hour of relief, or you doing something else for an hour. They say that our children are like our emotions, that when they come to us, you just have to sit with them for a while.
Very true.
And a lot of times we don't realize that it doesn't take a lot of time to give them that attention.
I mean, a really good tip for anyone out there who hasn't already kind of done this, and they probably haven't because they don't know about it, but look up love languages, because not every child needs the same thing. So love languages, there's a whole range of them, and one of them is spending quality time. Another one, it's gifts. Some others, it's just physical touch. So you've got this range of things which, if you've got a child who just wants physical touch, they'll probably actually be quite happy just sitting next to you and having that hug, and they'd probably stay quiet, and they'll probably be avidly watching what's going on the screen. But the child who wants quality time, they're going to be demanding your attention. The child who wants a gift, then maybe you go and you find something they can make, or they can do something with, or they'll actually happily draw you a picture because they want to give you a gift, because that's their way of showing love. So you can set them up with pens and crayons and say, look, you draw me a brilliant picture and bring it into me in half an hour, and that will probably engage them. So that's actually quite a good thing to look into, is that whole thing about love languages, because you can show them that you still care for them, and you can also start to understand how they're showing you that they're caring for you.
Yes.
Because sometimes when the child's crawling up your leg and wanting to hug you all the time, and all you want is space, you get all frustrated. But if that child's love language is, physical touch and quality time, they're not going to be fobbed off with a lollipop or something. You're not giving them what they need. So,
all right. So let's talk about the older children, the parents who have teenagers.
So you've got a teenager. Lovely. Yes, so I have teenagers.
It's a challenging time. Again, they're having to spend a lot of time online on the internet. Um, they don't have contact with their friends. They can't go outside. How are parents dealing with teenagers?
The thing with teenagers is this is where intentional parenting comes in, to be honest,
Yeah.
because you've got to have that hope that they get to this age, you can still talk to them.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's a situation I'm in. I can talk to my kids. You know, if I go and sit on their bed and stare at them, and eventually they'll speak to me. It's obviously a lot harder if you've got a child who you're finding it hard to connect with.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we just need to realize that they do not process the way that we do. They're very much in the moment. Their connections with their peers is a very strong driving force. But
Yes.
equally, they still need some guidance. They don't have that kind of forethought. They don't have that kind of what if, I do this, this might happen.
The consequences.
So they still need our support. And that might be, well, look, Charlie, I'm going to turn the internet off overnight. Yes, I know you want to be talking to your mates till 12 o'clock in the morning. But at the end of the day, we still need to keep some form of routine. And actually, it's better for you and everybody if we turn that off, or your phone goes into this box or whatever. But you can definitely negotiate, and I'd definitely say the concept I call of screen time CPR. And the CPR, so C is really cut out the conflict, have conversations about why you'd like to put things in place, talk to them about the new rules and how that should work. The P is to power off, to make sure that you actually put those phones down and the screens away, and you do get outside and you do those kind of physical things that we all know we need to do, reconnect with nature, go for a walk, whatever. And the R is about reconnecting as a people, as a family. So have a meal together, talk about how you're feeling, share food, that's real kind of basic,
nice,
great way of keeping connected with your teenagers is having a family meal together.
Yeah.
And encourage them to, and once they get into a system and a routine with that, they're actually really good. But yeah, let them reconnect with their passions and things other than their screen.
Yes.
And it just takes some time, but yes, talk to your teenagers. Yes, they'll be on the screens quite a lot more than they are normally. Try not to give them too much hassle about stuff right now, but equally know that they're not going to necessarily make the best choices, because they do still need your support.
Yeah, and the thing about teenagers, I got to a point where my kids used to answer back with one-word sentences. I could ask them, so how was your day? Fine. What did you do at school? Nothing much. And I used to trap my kids in the car. So I live quite far from the school.
Yeah.
But we had a 1-hour drive in rush hour traffic where they could not go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. They were stuck with me in the car for an hour every morning. And people used to think I was crazy to drive my teenage kids to school. But that was my way of having that time with them. Yeah. I guess now we're going to have to do something similar, but at home.
Yeah, which is that meal time. Yeah, my daughter knows she's not supposed to leave the table until everyone's finished. Those kind of general courtesies, which kind of means she's stuck there while we're eating slowly, having a conversation with her. But yes, the car drive, we still do family shopping.
Okay.
Obviously, at the moment we're only supposed to send one person, but equally, if I felt I needed to talk to her, we could drive there together. She could just sit in the car. But yeah, car conversations are really good because teenagers are brilliant at that whole kind of good, fine. And my eldest is actually at uni at the moment. She's down in Otago, Dunedin. And I have conversations with her, text message conversations, and I get exactly what you said. Fine, good, okay. And I'm like, oh my God. So I do find FaceTiming works really well because, as they say, there's only a small part of our communication which is actually the words. The rest is how we're saying it, how fast, our tone, all that kind of stuff. And also what we're doing, how we're looking in our facial expressions. Yes. And I find that that's where doing a bit of FaceTiming, even if she's just going, good, you can read her.
Yes, the body language will give them away.
Yeah, you can kind of get that hint. So we make sure that we have at least once a week we FaceTime her. We try not to overdo it. And the rest of the week I tend to text her. But yes, was actually talking to a lady yesterday, exactly the same thing. How do I encourage them to speak to me more? They feel they are speaking to you. They've answered your question. I mean,
What
I
else
always
do
say
you want, Mom?
I say to my daughter, how are your friends? Well, I don't know. Well, have you been speaking to them? Yeah. Well, how are they? I don't know. I've not asked them that question. And it's like, you don't actually have to ask them that question. You can defer, you can work out how they are by what they've been saying to you. Huh? It's not how they work.
Yes,
They're very much, just tell me what you want me to know.
It's a challenging time we're living through, but we're having to learn to communicate differently and to be a little bit more present, like you say, being able to look at someone on screen, because this is now the interface. It's either Zoom or it's Skype or it's on Facebook, FaceTime, looking into their faces and reading the words, listening to the unsaid. Because a lot of kids are under a great deal of stress right now as well.
Well, yes. I mean, there's families where things aren't going quite so well, and as they say, if you are caught in a situation, certainly as a child or a teenager, they do say, look, you are able to go. If you need to go, go. Go to your neighbour, go to someone you trust, get the support from external services. No one should be left or feel that they have to stay in a situation which is unsafe for them. And I mean, that's something which you kind of start to think about. You kind of go, you can only worry about so much for so long. But yes, it is true. Not everybody is having the best time in the world right now.
Yeah. So going forwards, what do you see as the future for parenting? We're all in this gray zone where nothing is really clear.
Someone told me a story yesterday, and I've no idea exactly how true it is, but they were saying that they used to work with children, I think, over in the UK, who children had come from Bosnia. I mean, I know that there was a lot of kind of refugees came in, and some of the children who came in hadn't been at school for like 6 years because of the situation that they'd been in obviously their home country. And so they were coming not only to a foreign country where they had to learn a new language, but they were coming into a schooling system and hadn't been in a schooling system for well over 6 years prior. And now, 10, 12 years on, they're actually fine. There's no kind of discernible difference in their capabilities.
Yes.
And I think that's part of, we put a lot of emphasis on schools being the educators, but the truth is we're educators as well. And it is about showing your children through how you're doing stuff, that whole role modeling scenario of how you'd like them to be. And they're learning stuff all the time. It's just, it hasn't got sort of like a KPI, curriculum based.
Measure it.
So I think just learning how to cope in these scenarios. I mean, who knows when something similar to this will happen again or not, etc., etc. But some of the basic stuff is what kids are missing out on. Washing up. I'm pretty damn sure my kids would probably struggle with washing up because everything just goes into a dishwasher nowadays, how to change a plug, how to change a light bulb. There's so many basic things. I mean, my daughter, when she was 13, I asked her to address an envelope. And she said, well, how do I do that? She'd never written a letter.
That is just amazing.
Put the address on the, where? Oh, well, kind of middleish. And so she did. She wrote the letter, the address, all in one line, because, of course, that's what you do in forms on the computer and stuff. So all in one line. And she said, well, where do I put the stamp? I said, sort of top right. And so she did. And it was kind of turned on its side and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, oh. So that there are things which we take for granted because we were brought up in a less different era. It is a different. I mean, I remember my mum telling me about using the mangle, scrubbing board, classic twin tub, all those kind of things. You go, oh, Mum, whatever. And it's the same for us now. We've got dishwashers, we've got microwaves, we've got phones which aren't attached to the wall. Things like this. It is a different age, and we almost need to learn almost as much from them as they're learning from us.
That is
they know how to make this stuff work.
Well, I think the learning definitely goes both ways. It's not just one-sided. Oh, Ruth, I could talk to you all day. I know that you have addressed a lot of key issues that parents are needing to think about, ways that they can cope with their families, with their kids. I thank you for coming online and sharing your nuggets of wisdom with us. And we're looking forward to you speaking at the Her Story Online Summit in September and hopefully running a workshop and connecting with more parents. So, if you were to do a workshop, what do you think your focus would be on?
Well, the thing I was talking about earlier about selfish sanctioning, it is something I think people kind of think, oh yeah, I've got that. Makes sense. Breaking down punishments from like a week to a couple of hours. But it is something you do need to think through, and you need to actually kind of forward plan. Because I can tell you now, when you're caught in the moment, you can get caught up with the whole fun of it all. And before you know it, you've grounded your child for a month. And I can tell you now, no one wants that. We're living that now. And your kids haven't done anything wrong. So I can tell you now, you don't want to do it when your kid's in the mood with you for making them do it. So that would be the kind of thing I'd be looking at. And sort of our general everyday communication, because as you said and indicated earlier, it changes a lot from when they're kind of babies to teenagers. And
teenagers.
Sometimes people forget that and start trying to treat their teenagers like toddlers. Or their toddlers like teenagers. And sometimes we just need to remoderate where we're talking.
And just remember. No, thank you so much, Ruth. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. And Ruth, thank you so much for the interview. Bye for now, everybody.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.